What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So Resident Evil and Smash Brothers seems to be crossing over, just maybe not in the way that people were hoping. In fact, it seemed kind of deflating to some people when they saw this. We're going to go over what's happening here and what this possibly could mean for the next fighter that does end up being revealed for Smash, because it looks like we may have eliminated a few based on what's happened here. Then also, VR and Phil Spencer apparently don't go together, and he let some people know about it, and it seemed like Sony decided to respond to that one. And Jedi Fallen Order, turns out it's done pretty well in its first few weeks. Maybe this is going to make EA think a bit more about going all live services going into the next generation. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure the like button, it does help out, and get subscribed so you can stay up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. And we're going to start today with the Steam controller. If you have not picked one up, it's too late now, it seems, because yesterday they decided to put them on fire sale. They were like, we're done with the Steam controller, because after these sell out, that's it, no more. We're not going to make any more of them. And they decided to mark them down to $5 a piece with shipping. And when I ordered one, because I did order one, I figure, hey, if this is it for them, I might as well grab one and we'll do a tech wave on it, open them up and all of that. With the shipping, I think it was like 12 or 13 bucks for a brand new Steam controller. Obviously, they were just trying to clear out their warehouse, get rid of all of them that they have left over, and I guess move on. Maybe they're going to just try to make room so they can start storing more of their index headsets for VR, and maybe in like, I don't know, 8 years, we'll be talking about how those were sold off for like 10 bucks a piece or something. But most likely Index will have hopefully a longer life than the Steam controller, although it's been around for a little while. It definitely was not picked up similar to like an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4 controller, as most people right now use those. If they fire up Steam, they pretty much say, oh, I'm going to plug in my PS4 controller, or my Xbox One, or even my Switch controller at this point. It's also supported, the Pro controller, and I'll just use that. The Steam controller, unfortunately, fell by the wayside, and I assume it just stopped selling that well, at least within reason for them to continue making it. But at this point, from what I can see, it's been sold out, and that seems to be it for the Steam controller. Oh, do you remember Stranglehold? This is back in 2007 on the PS3, the 360, and the PC. I believe I played it on the PlayStation 3. This was the game where John Woo presents Stranglehold, and you would do tequila time, which is basically when you'd slow down time. You could like slide down the rails and do all these really cool shots, kind of Max Payne style, but different things like signs falling on people would happen, and it was like super cinematic. That's actually back. That's right, it just randomly popped back up on GOG.com for $10 on PC. The minimum spec requirements are very low at this point, right? It's from 2007, it is an older game, but it's still a ton of fun. If you have never played it, I think it's worth picking up and trying out, especially at $10. It's, like I said, similar to, think of like Max Payne from back in the day, but this one was a bit more out there at times with some of the stuff you were doing in the game. I remember the PS3 version, I think, came with a copy of Hard Boiled for like the special edition, I believe, and that was when Sony was, of course, trying their best to push Blu-ray all over the place. So that was kind of, oh, you got a Blu-ray movie with your game, but I really liked it. It was so much fun, and I recommend people check it out. It was really cool to see how many people were really excited about it popping up, because it was neat to see how many people also remember that game like I do. So I'm going to check it out on PC. The issue we ran into is it was delisted for a while. It just disappeared because Midway went under, but now, yeah, Stranglehold is back. Also, if you're a Stadia Pro member, so if you're playing Stadia at this point, you should be. There's no other way to really do it right now. You might want to double check what you've purchased recently and how many hours you've put into it, because they did announce 2 games going to their Pro membership, which of course is where you get a couple of free games. Right now we had Samurai Showdown and we have Destiny 2. Well, they announced 2 more games that are going to become free for Pro members, and they're from the current library. So if you've recently bought games like Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, you might want to look into how many hours you've played it, and you might want to just look in to see if you can get a refund, because starting in December, as they tweeted out here, you'll have both Farming Simulator and Tomb Raider Definitive Edition going to the Stadia Pro lineup, which means it will be, of course, free for anyone who is paying for it. It's strange to me that they would pull games from their current library and throw it into their subscription service, which of course, the idea is the subscription service is for streaming 4K and HDR. It's not necessarily for, the games are supposed to be like a perk, a benefit similar to PlayStation Plus or games with gold. So when I say you're not paying for it. Technically, you kind of are, but they're trying to disguise it like you're not. It's just strange that they just pulled games from ones they're already selling and just kind of moved them over. I thought it would have been much more impactful to announce something brand new and immediately put it into Stadia Pro, but at least they've given people these additional games. We had in November, now December. We'll see if they can keep it up going forward and maybe build a library there. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with VR and Phil Spencer. He had a sit-down interview. This was reported by Survivor, and he talked a bit about his thoughts on virtual reality and going into the next generation with Xbox Scarlett and his thoughts on it. This is what he said. I have some issues with VR. It's isolating. I think of games as a communal, kind of together experience. We're responding to what our customers are asking for, and nobody's asking for VR. The vast majority of our customers know if they want a VR experience, there's places to go get those. We see the volumes of those on PC and other places. And he goes on to say, nobody's selling millions and millions of VR units. He does also kind of catch himself a little bit and say, I think we might get there eventually, but yeah, that's not where our focus is. And he says no one's selling millions and millions of VR headsets, which is factually wrong, because the PlayStation VR has sold at this time, from what we understand, 4.7 million headsets, which is well above other ones like whether it's Oculus Rift or Vive, which I do think those are multi-million unit sellers. They might be in like the 1.5 million range now. Yeah, the PlayStation VR is much better in terms of sales than either of those. I think maybe even combined, it's still better in terms of sales volume, but Phil Spencer was so close with his statements here. He's technically wrong when he says nobody's asking for VR. People are asking for VR, right? Look at the reception to Half-Life Alyx. People got really excited to hear it's a Half-Life game. And then I think some got disappointed that it was a VR game. Absolutely. Same response to that Iron Man VR game. Oh, cool. Iron Man. Oh, wait, it's VR. That happened, right? But there are some people, obviously, who are buying VR headsets, and it is a smaller amount of the install size of PlayStation 4s in general, but keep in mind, you're trying to sell people a $300 headset. That's not easy, and it's very difficult to explain VR to someone who's never tried it before and convince them without them then trying it. It kind of relies more or less on word of mouth and actually trying it at like a friend's house than just walking in and saying, well, that commercial convinced me, I need a PlayStation VR headset. So for Phil Spencer to just immediately say, no one's really asking for it, yeah, that is technically wrong. What he should have said is, hey, the PlayStation VR crowd, it's niche, it's smaller. We are focusing more on our services because that's where we think the bigger piece of the pie is right now. And maybe we'll look at VR down the road as it continues to evolve. Done. Easy, right? That probably would not have created a whole thing like it did online, because we even got to the point where Shuhei Yoshida had to respond saying, we oftentimes work hard to make things that no customers are asking for them. This is clearly in response to what Phil Spencer said during that interview. And the thing with Sony is someone has to push VR forward. I do think Valve did a good job with Half-Life Alyx because they put a lot of time, it seems, into that game and developing it. It's coming out in March, and that's really drummed up a lot of interest right now in VR just because it's Half-Life, but Sony's been there in the trenches for a while now, a couple years now, and they have basically sold a headset that has worked to spread VR further. It's definitely more so than Vive and Oculus at this point. The numbers tell us that, and it does help that you don't need to build a PC or check any of your specs or drivers or any of this stuff. The setup is still annoying, but it's definitely easier than what's on PC, and I do wish that Microsoft would also jump into the VR game, because if there are two console manufacturers, and I know Nintendo does their Labo and stuff. I'm talking about like the quote unquote serious VR stuff, right? I do wish Microsoft would jump in and give competition to Sony, because if both companies are working to progress VR, I think it would get to the finish line, or at least the point where mainstream really looks at it much faster. But hey, we'll see if Phil Spencer and Microsoft really jump in to VR next generation, but we can clearly count on Sony to show up with most likely a VR headset too, maybe even at the launch event. Next up, let's talk about Smash Brothers and Resident Evil. We had this announcement here on Twitter, as you're seeing. This is from Nintendo Versus saying, conquer the looming fear for 5 days starting November 29th. Chris, Leon, Wesker, and Jill will appear on the Spirit board in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Check it out. And this, of course, immediately people go, Well, I guess Leon's not getting in. Yeah, when you see characters announced as spirits or added in as spirits, there is that general thought that, oh, I guess they're not going to be added in as a fighter or, a new character that's going to be like the big unveiling for the fighter. It does get that feeling. You feel kind of like Resident Evil fans feel a bit deflated right now because I think most people are saying, oh, Leon or Jill, that's who we want in there. Even both, one is an Echo Fighter, the other or something. That would have been really, really cool to see. I wonder if maybe Sakurai couldn't really think too much about it or maybe they're focusing somewhere else and maybe it's still at Capcom because a lot of people now have shifted focus after this announcement very, very quickly from Resident Evil to Dante from Devil May Cry. And I think Dante makes a ton of sense for Smash, like an immense amount of sense. We, of course, see Devil May Cry showing up on the Switch pretty frequently now. We just talked about the third one the other day, and they even decided to bring the second one over for whatever reason. They could have left that, who cares? But they brought the first one, the second one, now the third one next February. Does this mean that Dante could be getting in? And I guess these events don't necessarily go, oh yeah, definitely Dante, but if we're taking Resident Evil essentially out, making that a spirit event with spirit characters, I mean, it was either like we were talking like Leon or Jill or, well, maybe Dante. At this point, Leon and Jill being eliminated and we have Dante, and yeah, it could be a character from anywhere else, but like, come on, Dante makes a ton of sense. And yes, I know Resident Evil fans are probably kind of sad right now because Leon, of course, was like the big character back in the day on the GameCube, right? We have Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. It was this massive deal when it came out. It was an amazing game then, still is now. Leon would have come full circle, right? With Leon showing up as a Smash character, a fighter that shows up. They would have probably had a really cool cutscene around it, by the way. That'd been really neat. But if this is the way they're doing it with Resident Evil, I guess look out for someone like Dante because that probably is the next one up. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong and it's just going to be Sora from Kingdom Hearts. I don't know. Let me know who you think's going to get in now that we're seeing spirit characters kind of made out of the Resident Evil characters. Next up, let's talk about Jedi Fallen Order. It's a single player game from EA with no microtransactions. It was weird right away, right? When no one could believe this. Respawn, of course, comes out with it. Great game. I love the game. I beat it. I'm still playing because I want to finish up as much as I can. I wish they would patch a few things. They have started to do some patches, specifically fixing some of the game-breaking issues or any of the glitchiness to it. I would like to see them add some quality of life stuff, like teleporting around your meditation areas after you beat the game, because there are some paths they want you to go back through for some story and events. So I get why they want you to not necessarily be able to teleport around while you're still playing through the game, but do you think EA might think a little bit about this series if it sold well? Because that's a question people have had. How is this game going to sell? We need it to sell well so EA can get a message that, oh, maybe they want more single-player games like in the Jedi series for Star Wars. Well, Business Wire put out this article here, and it looks like the report is it's doing very well. In fact, if we go through here really quick, it says Respawn Entertainment and Lucasfilm announced that the critically acclaimed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the fastest-selling digital launch for a Star Wars game in its first 2 weeks. The game is also now EA's top-selling Star Wars title on PC in its initial launch window. Now, of course, they did also move this to Steam. You still have to launch Origin, but you can still buy it through Steam. So that of course, probably gave them a bit of a bump over Origin. But to see that this is often running as fast as it is, and there have been other reports saying that it is doing well pretty much everywhere for the most part in terms of sales, I am really looking forward to the NPD sales results, because if this charts in the top, I'm going to say the top 5, top 4 maybe, because we're getting into the holidays and there are a lot of games around it right now. That would be a big deal, I think, right? Also keep in mind it has contended with Pokemon. That's going to take over the charts, I would say, probably for November. But if we can see it up there, EA is going to have to think a little bit about this, right? They're going to have to step back and say, well, wait a minute, do people really want single-player games? Do they? Because at that point, leave Respawn on it. Let them continue making more entries in this Jedi series. It was well done, and if they can then take what they have here, build on it going forward into next generation even, I am really excited, and I'm glad to see it selling, because I think that means we're going to get more from Respawn, and they did a great job with their first Star Wars game. Respawn can make a game, right? We all understand that at this point. So excited to see what the future holds for the series, because so far, I don't think EA can ignore it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Steam Autumn Sale, just in case you need to build your backlog any further in that Steam library. I think every year we all come together, we buy some, $10 to $15 packs of games, and then we just never really play them or install them. Maybe years later we go, oh yeah, I did buy that forever ago, let me try it out. Well, Steam is here with a ton of games back on sale, a ton of franchises back on sale, by the way. A lot of stuff going on here. Let's go over just a few of them. Like Resident Evil 2, as an example, is $20. That is a great deal. Maybe you saw that on the Game of the Year nominations and you were thinking about playing it. Now might be a good time to pick it up. Also, several franchises like the Dark Souls franchise is up to 75% off. We have the Darksiders franchise up to 80% off. The Dead Island franchise up to 75% off. And of course, that was where that Steam controller went down to $5. That is unfortunately gone right now. Disco Elysium dropped 20%. Sekiro dropped 35%, which is pretty good. Rainbow Six Siege dropped 60%. I also saw that Devil May Cry 5 dropped below $20. And if you're someone who wants to play the Civilization games or try them out, Civilization 6 dropped 75% to $14.99. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff, ton of games under $10, a lot of them under $5. You could get in there, you could walk into this whole thing with like $10 and still come out with several games. So the Steam sales are always fun to kind of go through and see if there's anything you want to pick up. Just, be careful with the backlog. It gets out of control sometimes. Trust me, I know. But, I mean, hey, they're cheap games, I guess, and you figure, oh, I'll play them eventually. And then you have like 800 games in your Steam library kind of out of nowhere. And we'll finish up with comment of the day as you're seeing here. This one is from Card Rider Draw saying, I don't think legally that Pokemon Company can go after the leakers themselves, but they could go after the companies that supplied them or broke the street date. Good luck though, I'm sure by now they're long gone. I'm sure the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, they will do their best to find them. I did wonder, like you were saying about the stores that broke street date, as that is an entity they can go after, and it's a little easier to track than people online who just randomly take pictures and post them on anonymous forums. But I will say, because I've seen it myself, breaking street date is carries some serious fines, penalties, consequences, and at times blacklisting you completely from being able to get these games wholesale. But we'll see if they go after retailers. That might make the news, it might not. It seems like the big thing here in the news is definitely them actually trying to track people down for taking pictures and leaking strategy guides. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go to it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it is Phil Spencer in VR, do you think he's wrong, or do you think he's right, basically saying, we're not gonna focus on VR right now, we'll wait on it, we're gonna work on some other stuff? Or do you think they should really tackle VR with the Xbox Scarlett to give Sony something to kind of look over their shoulder with? What do you think about Smash and Resident Evil, but Resident Evil Spirits? Would you rather it be a character like Leon, or are you okay with someone like Dante kind of being the next one up? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.